listening to Second Wind with Joyce Buford, where women who are ready to expand their life adventure discover the tools to stop playing small and tap into the courage required to enjoy their second wind. Welcome. Good morning to everybody out there that's listening to this podcast today. It's going to be a great day, and you're going to walk away with your head spinning with all the great information you're going to learn from our guest, Bill Potts. He has an amazing story, and he's willing to share it with everybody in the world because he has a strong message for those that have gone through cancer or may experience cancer. So let me tell you just a tiny bit about him, because I want him to get on and start talking to you. He's got lots to share. Bill has experienced 5-time cancer, and he has survived. He is a survivor. He is currently living with an incurable cancer, which he will share with us and tell us more about that. Now, his book that he has finished, when did you finish this book, Bill?
I finished it a little over a year ago.
Yay, it's right off the press. His book, Up for the Fight, How to Advocate for Yourself as You Battle Cancer, was inspired by a suggestion from a Mayo Clinic to turn his pain into a purpose. 5 times. I'm stuck on that 5 times, Bill. And he wanted to help others who are in the Cancer Club, of which I will tell you that I'm one of those people. And there's so many that are still fighting for cancer, as you've said. Now, Bill has 2 girls, 2 twins. How fun is that? And a son.
Awesome.
He's been married for 32 years to his wonderful wife, Kim. And Bill is a family man, entrepreneur, and marketing executive. He works hard to live a healthy, active lifestyle, including a healthy diet, exercise, prayer, and connecting with nature. Now, this is what almost blew me out of my chair. He is an Ironman athlete, has run the Boston Marathon, and even run up the Empire State Building. When did you have time to do this?
It was hard. Yeah, it was hard trying to squeeze in training time.
Well, welcome to Second Wind. I'd say you have 5 wins going, wouldn't you?
I am really grateful. It's not too often you get to hear people say they're a 5-time cancer survivor, and I think gratitude is the word. And I really am grateful to be on your show, because it's amazing, and your energy and your positivity and the message that you bring is just needed to be heard. So it's an honor to be on your show.
Oh, thank you, Bill. That's great. Now, your cancer took, when I read this, 20 years. You've been fighting this for 20 years. So your first cancer was when you were 20?
Actually, I was 40. I was 42 when my first cancer came. So I went to my primary care physician in Houston, Texas. I was living there then, and he looks at me and he's like, "You've got something on your thyroid." Turns out that was thyroid cancer. I had that thyroid removed. I went through radiation ablation treatment, getting the same radiation that was actually released by Chernobyl, iodine-131. And so I got that. A year later, they told me it was back. At that point, I said, I'm going to go get a second opinion, because I don't believe that it could be back, because based upon what I'd gone through. Thought I was done with the cancer journey, Joyce. But then in 2008, I was living now in Tampa, Florida, and was diagnosed with stage 3 lymphoma. And then we got that knocked back, but it came back in 2014, lymphoma again. 2019, lymphoma again. In 2020, was diagnosed with prostate cancer, then lymphoma again. So I currently have prostate cancer. We kind of have that on hold, but I'm in remission with my current lymphoma. But as you said, it's incurable. It will come back. And so we're just trying to see if we can, how long it can go before we come back, because I'm wanting the technology and the medicine to catch up to my cancer.
Right.
So I'm hopeful at some point, Joyce, that I can actually be cured. But it is, the
Yeah.
cancer smartens up. So we just keep getting,
Uh,
I guess I would say, harsher with the
yes.
treatments.
Yeah. You said something that I want to emphasize, that you always need to be willing to be responsible for yourself, and being responsible for your health means getting second opinions, getting third opinions if you need to feel comfortable. I think in many of us, we kind of come from the generation of trusting our family doctor to be the one that knows, but it's not always that, because if that's not his field of expertise, then
Yes.
you need to go where they are knowledgeable about what he has suggested you have. So I think it's really hard for us sometimes to say, well, thank you, but I want to get a second opinion, and not feel embarrassed about it. Did you ever feel that way?
Yeah, it's you're right, 100% right. And I was never embarrassed about it, because really the way I looked at it is my life depended on getting the right treatment protocol. And
Mhm.
so since it was life or death, that second opinion was something. Now I learned it the hard way, right? I didn't get a second opinion with my thyroid cancer the first time, and I went through treatment. That when I went to get the second opinion post radiation, they're like, "Ugh, not sure that was the best thing, but it was done, and you can't look back." But yes, that advocating for yourself, that getting a second opinion becomes pretty critical. And you mentioned it. There are 61 different types of lymphoma. So
Whoa.
yeah, and you need to go to the place that is, particularly for me, that specializes in my type of lymphoma.
Yeah.
My doctor at MD Anderson, Nathan Fowler, uh, probably sees he sees as many patients with my particular type of lymphoma as anybody in the world. So I'm a Ferrari. I got to go to a Ferrari dealership. I can't go to the
Right.
Chevy dealership, because he specializes in my particular type of cancer. And to your point, that's why that becomes so critical for you to get that second opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I have to say that, but I want to share that that was the only place I have been. You have been to Mayo, and you as well. But I was, and my friend who's just gone down there to have some treatment has spoken about this a couple times. She said they're so nice. And I think about how many people they see in all different shapes, all different frustrations, all different pain, and they still project a caring for every patient that comes up there. I'm amazed with the facility. Do you see this also at Mayo?
Yeah, I do. It's MD Anderson 100%, and at Mayo it's the same thing. And I asked them at Mayo, I'm like,
Did you?
how that how do you do it? And they
Uh-huh.
said, Bill, first of all, it's how you hire, right? They hire people that care.
Yes.
But number
Yes.
two, they said, we treat you like family, like we would our family, and that's how they're trained to do it. And it's remarkable. And that's just not the people taking care of me. Even in MD Anderson, I've been lost, getting around there, and it could be the custodian that stops
Mhm.
what he or she is
Mhm.
doing and takes me to my appointment. And you
That's
you
true.
you just have that type of care at Mayo and MD Anderson, and it's beautiful.
Mhm. Yeah. Uh, I My friend also shared this moment. She was having a test last week, and she was saying the technician was so nice. Didn't have to
Mm.
be. He's probably done 6 or 7 that day, and she couldn't get over his care, his concern. Was she comfortable? Was she, it's just something that makes that journey a little more pleasant and doable.
Well, and I also learned from them. And speaking of that, I was having a bone marrow biopsy, and I was awake for it. And if you've had one, you know it's a different type of pain.
Mhm.
So I was like, can you give me some tips, which is in the book? Can you give me some tips on how to deal with this?
Uh-huh.
And he's like, sure. he said, I'm going to, when we're going into the bone to get the marrow, I'm going to have you count, just count out loud, and we're going to count down. It's going to take, so long, and we'll just count down out loud, and that'll take your mind off of what I'm doing and put your mind on the counting. And
Yeah.
that was a game changer for me. And the deep breathing that I heard from some of the staff, the visualization techniques I heard from
Yes.
a physician's assistant at MD Anderson on how the whole thing works, those make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do. They're great coping skills. Now, I always ask about the defining moment. It would be interesting for you to share, when was your defining moment? And because your journey started in that doctor's office, and then there's so many repeats that took place.
Yeah.
Was there one that sticks out in your memory? As a
Yes,
defining?
it does. It was 2008. I was, stage 3 lymphoma, new to it. I was a little bit, by then I know how to advocate for myself and do my homework, but I didn't really quite understand what I was going to go through with the treatment. And so it was my first treatment.
Mhm.
And I'm in a private room, a treatment room in Houston at MD Anderson. And I'm all hooked up, wired up, getting ready for the treatment. It's a pretty big deal. And the first hour goes great. So much so that I'd brought my computer. I was going to do work. I thought this was going to be, I'm just going to go in and get my treatment and, fly back to Tampa from Houston. Things were going to be fine. Long story short, my wife, after an hour, gets up to leave. She can't get a cell signal in the room. So she leaves the room, leaves the hospital to go call everybody and say, hey, it's going great. The moment she exits the room, they turn up the volume on my treatment, and I have like a life-threatening reaction to the treatment. And the defining moment was, that's when it became real for me. I mean, literally, it was a 911, and they're running in and they're saving me. And at that point, I kind of understood the gravity of what I was playing with, that I was playing for keeps. And it changed my perception, not just on the treatment. That moment, changed my perception of life and how I was going to live it. And it happened, it took a minute and a half, and it changed everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Life does change, doesn't it, after you have cancer?
Mm.
In
Yeah,
many
it's
ways.
in a million ways.
Mm-hmm. It does. So, but somebody gave you some advice when I'm talking about the courage to write a book.
Mm.
How did that
Yeah.
happen?
Yeah, September 17th, 2020, and now it's the pandemic. I need to have surgery to remove a tumor below my right hip, and I'm now in Jacksonville at Mayo Clinic.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm by myself in the recovery room. I've had this surgery. I was relieved because I was in so much pain ahead of the surgery with the tumor, and I wake up in the recovery room, and I'm having a full-fledged emotional breakdown. Not like tears running down the face. We're talking full-fledged emotional breakdown, sobbing. And the nurse Jen comes over to me and says, "What's wrong?" And I told her that maybe I wasn't up for the fight anymore, that it was time to give up, that I knew what was coming, cancer for the 6th time, and 4th time with lymphoma, and maybe I'd had a great life, and maybe it was just time to quit fighting. So she called in the pastor, and we talked for an hour about all the reasons why I should continue the fight, to fight for my family, to fight for my friends, to fight for my work I was doing at the time, which was amazing, helping people, and then to fight to make God proud. And so I was fine. We talked about why she was there at the hospital, being the pastor, and she had a story too, and everything was good. And at the end of that conversation, she looks me in the eye and she goes, "Bill, you ought to turn your pain into purpose and write a book to help others." I'm like, okay. And for me, a deal's a deal, especially with the pastor.
Yes.
and
She's
and
got your
so
number.
I did not know what I committed to, but
Yeah.
I reached out to a publisher in Canada, and they jumped on board this thing. And then I started writing a book while I was going through chemotherapy. And it was, I don't call it my book, I call it our book, because we did it together.
Mhm. Yeah, how do you start a book? How did you decide what would be in the book? I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
the way your book is presented, which I've been fortunate to read half of the book
Mm.
so far, but I plan to finish, um, seems to be presented in such a great way. It's like it steps you through the process of from easy, simple to more aggressive.
Yeah.
Would that
Yeah. I
be?
think it was a tag team effort with the publisher, but the first thing we had to decide to do was look at the market and see what the
Uh-huh.
market was. What I didn't want to be is a book about me.
Yeah.
Not about me. Yeah, it weaves my journey into it, but it's about what I've learned. And my wife was so helpful in this when we were talking through this. We looked at the market and realized there's not a book like What to Expect When You're Expecting, but for
Mm-hmm.
cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So once we knew that, the entire layout of the book, it's easy to read. It's meant to be put in your purse or your backpack or your briefcase. It's meant to be written in. It's written in prose, so you can take notes, the checklists, all those kind of things. And then it
Yeah.
became easy to say, beginning a journey from diagnosis all the way to end of the journey, and what happens after the journey once you're cured or in remission. And then we snuck in a piece which was the publisher's idea of let's hear from your family so that they can give advice to friends and family of cancer patients, which chapter 14 is my favorite one because I didn't write it, they did. And I learned a lot from what they said, but there's a whole science to how do you handle your relative who's a cancer patient or your friend, and that's in the book too and super helpful.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I look forward to that chapter because family is so important in that I always say, for having gone through that experience of cancer myself, I always say that they suffer almost as much as the patient in a different way. They suffer in the support, in seeing you hurt, in seeing all of that pain come forward, even though you may take it like a trooper,
Yeah.
they still see the remnants of it. And when you have cancer, you're never the same person that you were
No.
before. So
Yeah.
I look forward to reading that chapter.
Yeah, it's insightful because you're right. Now my kids were tykes when I was diagnosed, 20 years ago,
Yeah,
and so they didn't really understand it. But now they're adults,
yeah,
they're working, and what we realized, my wife and I realized as they got into high school, is that we needed to make sure that they had the support that they needed. That wasn't just talking to me or talking to my wife about it, that they had the right group of support, professional help if they need it, to make sure they work through those things, because they can kind of suffer silently.
yes.
And so that's what we did. And we also,
Mhm.
as I got older, I was full disclosure with them, full. Whereas when they were
Yeah,
younger, it hid a lot of stuff from them so that they really
right.
understood what we were dealing with, and they could help them process it better. But yeah, you're right. And the spouse, my poor
Uh-huh.
wife was always afraid that who was going to take care of me if she got sick.
Oh,
And
right.
so there's a whole lot of good insight from her on how to handle that.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Because it really is the family that is the key for supporting. I mean, they're
Yes.
there and they see it all, and yeah, it is. So, um, now I know that cancer does change your life, but it also kind of makes you a little more vulnerable just to live. Like you were sharing some of the um, red flags that you need to be aware of, like groups, and with all we've had with COVID and all that, and now the flu. And how do you manage your life with those situations?
It's dramatically different. I'm a very social person, and when I got the cancer, my cancer is of the immune system. In 2020 during the pandemic, my chemotherapy has completely wiped out a big chunk of my immune system, particularly the
Right.
lymphocytes. And so I still am now living a very different life than I did before. So when I was going through chemo, my chance of surviving COVID was 45%. So you can imagine how
Wow.
limiting it was to be around people. And still to this
Right.
day, I haven't been in a restaurant, haven't been on an airplane. I was only in a movie theater because we rented the whole theater so I could see Top Gun Maverick. My family did that for me for Father's Day.
That was
Uh,
cool.
I have to be cautious on who I'm around and where I see them. Everything is outside. I live in Florida, so that's not too challenging. I just adapted.
Yeah.
I've just adapted. My kids, if my friends, if they don't feel good, they don't come over. If they come over anyway, we sit outside. If it's too cold to sit outside, well, they don't come over.
Yeah. And do
Or
you
we
wear a
bundle up.
mask? Have you continued
I
to
will
wear a
wear.
mask?
Yeah, I won't if I'm outside. And inside the house, if it's with family that I know is healthy, I won't wear a mask. But we did install a system called the Remy Halo system, which is used by hospitals to
Hmm.
purify the air. So we'll run that.
Oh,
It
yeah.
runs through our AC and heating system. So we'll turn on the fan, and that gives you great protection as well. But my challenge is if I go to an outside restaurant, which we did yesterday, it was a beautiful day here. My sister's in town. My issue is like, where do I go to the bathroom if I got to go to the bathroom, right? So, because
Uh-oh.
I got to go into the restaurant. And when I'm
Yeah.
traveling, to Mayo, what do we do? And so then I'll double mask up, or wear an N95. And yeah, I wear a mask. I always have them with me just in case.
Yeah. Well, I do too. I mean, I'm just a little overprotective, I think. It's not because I had cancer. I just always do. I'm still kind of living in the caution is better than not. And I just don't want to risk it. So,
I think you're smart, and particularly as the pandemic progresses and these viruses mutate, as it stands right now,
mhm.
uh, they're running out of treatments for the current versions of COVID. So there are 7 million immunocompromised people like me in the US, and we're all in these groups together. So we share information, but uh, a lot of them live in fear. And a
Uh-huh.
lot of them don't. If you're being treated with rituximab for rheumatoid arthritis, you're never out of the immunocompromised state. At some point, I
Mhm.
hope to rebuild my immune system, even though it's been a long time. At some point, I hope it comes back. But for many of them, I mean, they're fearful
Right.
going out. And I think in your case, being cautious is prudent.
Mhm. Um, have you had any of the COVID shots? Has that would
Yes,
not be? You did?
I did,
Okay.
but they didn't work. So I was in a
Oh,
study with Leukemia Lymphoma Society. So this is a concern for people that have gone through my particular type of chemotherapy. And so I was in a study with them. And so I would get the shots and I would measure, did they work? Did I have
uh-huh.
antibodies? The answer was no. And so
Uh,
then I got a drug called Evusheld, was convalescent plasma for people like me. And I got that a couple times. And I avoided COVID until Halloween, made a mistake, pouring down rain, went to somebody's place, super safe, protected, knew all that. But then a friend came over and I got COVID, and it was rough.
was it?
Yeah, it was pretty rough. So
Mm,
I was circling the drain pretty quickly. And there's this drug called Paxlovid that is an
yes.
antiviral from Pfizer, which literally
Uh,
saved my life. And I was grateful for that.
oh, yeah. I'm knocking on wood because I haven't had COVID yet.
Yeah,
So,
good for you. Yeah, good for you.
well,
I made
I
one
need to go
mistake.
out sometime.
I made one mistake, and
Yes.
it only takes one. But at least now, one mistake didn't kill me because
Yeah.
of Paxlovid. And I knew
Yeah.
I had a pre-plan with my doctors. If I knew I was going to get it at some point, I thought I was going to walk in the house with the
Mhm,
plumber,
mhm,
the AC
mhm,
guy, even though we
mhm.
have them wear masks. I thought I was going to walk in, and it wasn't. It didn't
Oh,
walk in. I actually walked into it, and so
oh, yeah.
I just had to tighten it up.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, how do you get to Houston? You drive?
Well, that's why I
You
wound
say
up
you
going to
don't
Mayo.
fly, so I'm
Yeah,
going,
so
well, how's he get there?
Yeah, so now and that's why I go to Mayo in Jacksonville. It's a 4-hour drive.
Yeah.
One time I did 23 flights to Houston in 24 months to go to MD Anderson, but now I just can't do that. So I have to drive to Mayo.
Yeah. Right. Well, um, it's just been amazing to be able to be part of your story, to help
Mm,
share your story, and to
mm.
even meet you. It has just
Oh,
been a thrill
it was
because
my thrill to meet you.
your history,
Oh,
history.
I'm fortunate.
sitting there. So anyway, you know that one of the things I did this year, and we're getting ready to close our show. I mean, I could keep talking and I have lots of things that I'd like to ask, but we do have a limit. So I want to tell you that I have chosen for my show this year, joy, the word joy. And so I have two questions that I'd love to ask you, if that's okay.
Sure.
About joy. And I think this will be kind of interesting because I could think of all sorts of things you might be joyful for. But tell me a story when you felt pure joy. Now, let me say that pure joy for me is an inside of an emotional, that's what I think of as in joy. You may think of another one, but it's what you feel and how you felt that pure joy.
Yeah, I remember it specifically because it was not very long ago. It was January 1st, 2023. And it was a beautiful day here. And I was sitting on the porch and I had both my twins, one of whom lives in Boston, and I had my son who lives in Boston, and my wife, just the five of us together. No phones, no anything. And we're sitting there. And I particularly remember the moment. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, this is amazing. And how grateful and joyous I am to be sitting here. And clearly in my case, just being there brought me joy. But that rare moment that the five of us were together as a family that had been through this journey now for 20 years, and we're at the point in 2023, which to me is amazing, that to be in 2023 and to be sitting there together with them, just chatting, was pure joy and gratefulness.
Oh, that's beautiful, Bill. Yeah. Okay. Now, the second question is 3 tips to create more joy in your life for my listeners.
Yeah,
so
that's a great question. Number one is that I've learned is to live in the moment. Like right now, is live in the moment. One thing I want to do is have this conversation with you. Living in the moment means putting your phone down and when you're talking to somebody, put it away, put it in your pocket. Living in the moment means going outside in the rain and just feeling the rain, rain down on you. Living on the moment means don't worry about tomorrow. You can think about and plan for tomorrow. That's cool, but just live. If you're at a football game, watch the game. If you're with your friends and family, just engage and look them in the eyes and listen and converse with them. So living in the moment is a big one.
Right.
Another one I've learned, and you have too through your journey, is to really believe in yourself and to believe that you're going to make the right decisions, for you, to believe that, you can beat the cancer, to believe that I could finish the Ironman, to believe that I could finish the Boston Marathon, to believe that I could finish the book. And I believed it. You can't achieve it if you don't believe it. So you've got to believe in yourself. And I've learned over and over and over again to believe in myself. But with that is also not to live back on the mistakes and go back on the mistakes that you had. If you believe in yourself, look, I've made mistakes, right? Almost cost me my life and still made, right?
Yeah.
With back to 2002, I don't worry about the past. I believe in myself and focus on today and try to live in the moment.
Right. That's a beautiful one.
Yeah.
Number 3.
This one's taken some effort because I'm super type A, but is to make sure that you have your priorities correct and that you set your priorities and then you stick to them. And I think some of the best things about how I spend my time are the things that I decide not to do because they don't fit with my priorities. So once I get my priorities right, which now is pretty clear, I need to stay healthy.
Yes.
I need to take care of myself.
Yeah.
I need to spend time with my family and my friends. I need to market the book because this book will 100% make a difference in the lives of cancer patients going through the journey. then it's easier to say no to other
Mhm.
opportunities. And then you're spending the time doing the things that add value to you versus what other people think add value for them.
Yeah. Really good ones. You broke it. All my other guests will have to live up to that one.
Oh,
They're
you're nice to say
wonderful.
that.
They're
You're
really
nice to say.
wonderful. But I want to go back. I do number 2, believe in self. When I was going through my cancer, I never thought that it would not be cured. I
Yeah.
knew I would. It was never even a thought in my mind. It
Yeah.
was like, I'm just doing this. And it's, it's kind of when you hear the news, you kind of have to steady yourself. But then once you get the diagnosis, then it's like, well, of course I'm going to beat this. It's that power you have inside of you that fights the battle.
So true.
Big contributor.
It is it's not fully understood, but the power of the mind to heal is pretty remarkable, and it helps. A positive attitude 100% will help, and it helps not just physically, it helps emotionally and mentally. A positive attitude going through the journey like you had, like I largely have. I mean, I have my dips because I take a pretty good beating
Yes, yours
sometimes.
is, yeah.
But the healthcare team feels it. They can feel the positive energy, and I don't know how to measure it, but I am 100% sure that a positive attitude brings more positive things around you with your healthcare team. I mean, it's like human nature. If you have a grumpy neighbor, how much time do you want to spend with a grumpy neighbor? But you got a neighbor that brings you joy and is happy. Guess where you're going to lean if you only had an hour to spend.
Right.
And so I think there is a positive effect with your treatment with a positive attitude. And it doesn't mean we always have it, because I don't, but I try.
Oh, sure. We all get tired. Well, we go back up on the goals. So, all right. This has just been so special. So I thank you very much for being on Second Wind. You've shared your message beautifully and touched many lives. So I'm just a few minutes. I want to say something to my listening audience, but don't go away. So all of you dear people out there that have chosen to be with us today, there were a few that just didn't make it. They had other duties that they had to do. So I'd really like for you to share this podcast. Go to your line, go to your social media, whatever it is, and send that to somebody, because you know how many people face not only the big C, but they also face other things. And there's so many good things that Bill has shared, so many great statements that he shared with us, that you have the opportunity to be part of his team. Share the message. That's what you can do today. I know that I say this a lot, but this is important. This is really important. People facing cancer can be very paralyzed. They can fight against themselves because they don't know some of the secrets that Bill has shared with us today. One of the best things you can do is buy his book and just keep a couple copies at your house, because there's going to be the day that you can pass it to a friend, to pass it to her friend, and so on. So become part of the Bill Potts movement, if you will, who is fighting for cancer, healing cancer for so many people. So thank you. I hope that you have a great week this week, because it's getting to be beautiful in Texas, and I hope it's getting to be beautiful wherever you are. So thank you for being there, being with us today. And I look forward to next week, to another time together. Thank you for being here. Bye-bye.
Joyce Buford returns next week at the same time for another edition of Second Wind. Through the Joyce Buford Empowerment System, women are receiving the support they need through their transitions and are able to reclaim their true purpose with confidence. They receive the tools they need to map out new lives. You can find out more about her coaching services at joycebufordempowers.com.